How do I choose what vegetables I'm going to grow as I strive for self-sufficiency to replace grocery store items? That's what I'm going to talk about. It will soon be time for me to look at the seed catalogs and determine what varieties of vegetables I want. But what about the actual vegetables themselves? What vegetables do my family want and need to get us from year to year? Outside for me right now is definitely off season, but even in warmer climates, your vegetables have their off season. So it's a great time to just see how well you're doing in that quest for food. I should say first that I think every garden is different. Every gardener is different and should be. We're all unique. We all eat different. We all have different families, different ages. We have young children or adults. Determines how much you're going to eat. So I think it's important to recognize that first, so we don't get caught up when we're looking in those catalogs and just, your eyes can say, I want that. If you're not going to eat it or cook with it and don't have time to grow it, eat it, cook with it, if your family just doesn't like it, there is no sense in self-sufficiency in starting with those vegetables. You can play around with it later, most definitely. But on the get-go, embrace your uniqueness, but drill down on what it is that you and your family want and need. Now, because I've been gardening for a while, there are three main items that I look at. And that is, what do we want to eat this season? What do you want me to concentrate on? And surprisingly, it changes from season to season. It always amazes me. That's the fun of gardening and the joy of eating. And then also, what's my space look like with the choices that we want? And very important is, how is that going to store? So how are we going to eat it during the summer? And then how am I going to store it for the winter? And how are all these vegetables overall going to help us reduce our food costs? For a new gardener, which I basically was coming to a new climate, I had to understand my zone here. I had to count down the days of growth. I had to just fully understand the climate, the sunlight, the shade areas, because you can't start without knowing that. That's your first step, really. And now with years of gardening here, I've got that down pat. So I know when it comes time to start looking at my seeds and the varieties I want, I know how to narrow that down, but that I'll look at later. And actually, when I started, I guess I looked at also the growing difficulty. You find out what will grow well here or not, but then also how difficult was that for me to accomplish? Did I have time? Did work allow for me to work out the plan that's in my head and actually do it? It's really important, I think, to avoid buying seeds that either you can't get to growing, you don't have the space to grow, or they just really won't work in your area. Good example for me is tomatoes and peppers. They were not the first produce that I concentrated on at all. In fact, the first ones I concentrated on were specific to my cooking. So it was garlic, I knew grew well in cold climates. Onions grows well in cold climates. And potatoes also. So I concentrated on those for a few reasons. I wanted to see if I could reach self-sufficiency with those three vegetables. By choosing simple vegetables first, you very much get the encouragement that I can do this. I also look at what's going on in the grocery stores. What are the costs? I try to really observe what's going on there and then use that to think, do I want to start growing that, or do I want to grow more of those? Squash is a great example. When I look at squash, I almost fall on the floor. Also, this year, I particularly want my garden to look lovely again. Last year, I used up all my seeds. It was a mission of mine to clean out my seed trays and seed storage. I just felt it was time to really get a fresh start. And I think that's important because, our viability of the seeds change. And I just wanted a fresh slate. And in doing that, I didn't have the pretty red lettuces and the pretty, I just concentrated on getting rid of those things. And that was great. But this year, clean slate, I know that I'll be looking at, where can I put in purple basil or red lettuce and just make my garden pretty. That's for me, a personal. I told you all us gardeners are different. So what have I come up with so far? I asked Bruce, Drew, myself, what we wanted this year. It's such a great question. This year, surprisingly, both Drew and Bruce said broccoli. Wasn't expecting that. They also said cauliflower. Really wasn't expecting that. I had great success this year with broccolini, and therefore I believe I cooked a lot with it. Stir fries, soups. I threw it in many just side dishes, and we really enjoyed it. So great. That was a success, and I'll concentrate more. I asked them, what about zucchini? Are you done with zucchini? Because I had such a great zucchini year. And both of them said, no, zucchini, which is surprising because I grow them because they provide so much from a single plant. But this year I didn't even broil one zucchini. I changed how we ate them. I did a lot of zucchini fritters. I know it's in oil, but they were delicious. And when you're in the peak of summer and you're eating, so many healthy, nutritious vegetables from your own garden, a little bit of a nice fritter fried really hit the spot. And I made melted zucchini pasta, a replacement for pasta sauce, so I don't have to buy pasta sauce or as much. I do try to make it from my tomatoes, but I don't have an abundance of tomatoes. So anything that can fill in there is great. Anything that replaces. I also don't buy any form of relish. We don't really eat any relishes or chutneys, but if you do have that hamburger, we like a relish. So I've replaced that with zucchini relish, which spicy zucchini relish, which is lovely. Peppers. Drew said peppers also, and Bruce had cabbage and potatoes. I'll eat everything, and they aren't picky, so that's wonderful for my family. We are not picky eaters. They love their vegetables. But for peppers, it's a little difficult for me. I will still play around with it because I have the space and the time, and have already really got my, main crops figured out. I play around with some peppers outside, but mostly I grow those inside. And as long as I can create from that pickled, hot banana peppers or pickled jalapenos or my dried cayenne powder and hot pepper flakes, then I'm replacing those grocery items, which are very pricey also. With regards to the broccoli, the cauliflower, and the cabbage, I do have to look at space with those. I grow those every year. But I do, sometimes you can look or, do a search for how much does a family need to survive a year. And it could put you right off because I read a few which were saying per person something like 4,000 square feet. My goodness, no one would ever start gardening if you're reading that. So it's not true. It's just not. You can make it work. A small garden, that may work for a farm. But a small gardener, you intense plant, you interplant, you stick things everywhere, you make it beautiful. They all love to mix together. You companion plant, and you're just constantly sticking things in, and what you can produce is quite amazing. But when it comes to, say, cabbage, if they say you need so many heads of cabbage per head in your family, I don't go by that. It's just, what can I fit in? I really am looking at space there. I don't have enough space for a cabbage field. And they don't do well enough for me to allocate that space to a cabbage field. I'm going to concentrate on my tried and true known vegetables that really get us through. Each year I also look at, is there a new soft fruit I could put on the property? I do have this space. Now if you're a new gardener, berries and herbs, I have to add those, may not be on your first list of self-sufficiency. But you do want to get to that point where you can slide them in and sneak them in somewhere, maybe on a patio, maybe in pots, maybe indoors. I've got all my herbs behind me. Because there's just nothing so wonderful as getting those first thing in the morning, walking around with your cup of coffee out in the garden and picking fresh strawberries. Oh, such joy. And my cooking wouldn't be my cooking without all the herbs that I use in it. And they're so costly at the grocery store. So yeah, each year I'm going to look and see what maybe I can find to, one year I did blackcurrant. The next year, the plants are a little costlier, so I only treat myself to one each year. I did raspberries, I did huskups, I did, I can't think, goji berries. So this year I'll see if there's something I can sneak in. So that's what I'll be looking at before I start narrowing down the seeds that I want and the varieties for my area. So to recap, what have I gone through? Know your climate, know your zone first. Know what your family eats, what you want to eat. Start small. You know, pick a few vegetables that are simple to grow and do well in your climate, that you really think you can achieve a year-to-year self-sufficiency with. Don't get caught up though in what some people say the easiest vegetables to grow. Because sometimes, I mean, that could be a radish, and I don't think a radish helps me in self-sufficiency in any way. Then ask what your family wants. What are you going to enjoy? What are you going to enjoy cooking with? The space, where can you fit it all? What can you manipulate? Are you on a really small scale and it's a balcony, or you know, what have you got? And just play with that. Start with that. Start small and you dream big. So thank you for joining me here in the kitchen. It's no fun for me outside right now. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.